Good day, everybody. I hope you are well and enjoying yourselves at home. I am back to read the next part of our story of the BFG. So last time we saw Sophie and the BFG visit Dream Country, and they came back with some dreams and a horrible nightmare inside those glass bottles, and they're inside the BFG's suitcase. And what does he do with them? Well, let's find out. They've just arrived back in Giant Country, and they saw all the giants, those big horrible nasty giants, sleeping on the ground. They is always having 50 winks before they go scumpering off to hunt human beings in the evening, they is, the BFG said, and he stopped for a moment to let Sophie have a better look. Giants is only sleeping every then and now, not nearly as much as human beings is. Human beings is crazy for sleeping. Is it ever occurring to you that a human being who is 50 is spending about 20 years sleeping fast? I must admit, said Sophie, that's never occurred to me. Well, you should allow it to occur to you, the BFG said. Imagine it, please. A human being who says he is 50 years old has been fast asleep for 20 years and is not even knowing where he is, not even doing anything, not even thinking. That is a funny thought. Exactly it is. So what I was trying to explain to you is that a human being who says he is 50 is not 50, he's only 30. What about me? I'm 8. Nope, you is not 8 at all. Human being babies and little children is spending half their time sleeping. So you is only 4. No, I'm 8. You may think you's 8, the BFG said. But you have spent only 4 years of your life with your little eyes open. You is only 4, and please stop higgling me. Twitchy little snipper-whappers like you should not be higgling around with an old sage and onions who is hundreds of years more old than you. Well, how much do giants sleep then? Sophie asked. No, they is never wasting much time snoozling, the BFG said. 2 or 3 hours is plenty. Well, when do you sleep then? Even less than that. I's only sleeping once in a blue baboon, the BFG answered. And Sophie, peeping out from the pocket, examined the 9 sleeping giants on the floor. They looked even more grotesque now than when they were awake. Sprawled out across the yellow plain, they covered an area about the size of a football field. Most of them were lying on their backs with their enormous mouths wide open, and they were snoring like foghorns. The noise was awful. Suddenly the BFG gave a jump in the air. By gumfrog, I's having the most wopsy whiffling idea, I is. What? Sophie asked. Wait here. Hold your horse feathers. Keep your skirt on. You just wait and see what I is going to bring about. And he galloped off fast to his cave, with Sophie hanging on tight to the rim of his pocket. And he rolled back the stone of his cave, entered, and he was very excited. He was moving very quickly. You stay where you is, in my pocket, little huggy bee. We is going to do this lovely bit of buckshwashling together. And he laid aside the dream-catching net, but hung on to his suitcase. A bit like this. And he ran across to the other side of the cave and grabbed that long trumpet thing, the one he'd been carrying when Sophie first saw him in the village. With the suitcase in one hand and the trumpet in the other hand, he dashed back out of the cave. What is he up to? Sophie wondered. Peep your head up good, then you'll get a fine winkle of what's going on, the BFG said. And when the BFG came near to those sleeping giants, he slowed his pace down. He began moving very softly. He crept on his toes towards those ugly brutes. They were still snoring loudly. Give me your loudest snore. They looked repulsive, filthy, diabolical, and the BFG tiptoed around them. He went past the gizzard gulper, the blood bottler, the meat dripper, the child chewer, and he stopped. He had reached the flesh lump eater. He pointed at him and looked down at Sophie and gave her a big wink. He knelt on the ground and very quietly he opened up his suitcase and took out a glass jar containing the terrible, nightmarish Troggle Humper. At that point, Sophie guessed what was about to happen next. Oh, she thought, this could be rather dangerous. She crouched down lower in the pocket so that only the top of her head was showing. She wanted to be ready to duck down out of sight should anything go wrong. And they were now about 10 feet away from the flesh lump eater's face. The snoring, snorting noise that he was making was disgusting. Every now and again, a big bubble of spit formed between his lips, and it would burst with a splash and cover his face with saliva. Taking infinite care, the BFG unscrewed the top of the glass jar and tipped that squirming, squiggling, faintly scarlet-coloured Troggle Humper into the wide end of his long trumpet. And he put the other end of the trumpet up to his lips. He aimed that instrument directly at the flesh lump eater's face and took a deep breath. And with a big puff of cheeks, he blew. Sophie saw a flash of pale red go darting towards the flesh lump eater's face. For a split second it hovered above his face, and then it was gone. It seemed to have been sucked up into that giant nose, but it all happened so quickly, Sophie couldn't be sure. "We had better be skidding away quick to where we is safe," the BFG whispered, and he trotted off about 100 yards away and stopped and crouched down low to the earth. "Now, we is waiting for the gun and flames to begin." And here is a very cool picture of the BFG there blowing this horrible Troggle Humper nightmare in to the flesh lump eater's nose. And now it's inside him. They didn't have long to wait. The air was suddenly pierced by the most fearful roar Sophie had ever heard. She saw the flesh lump eater's body, all 54 feet of it, rise up off the ground and fall back with a thump. And then rise up again and fall with a thump. It began to wriggle and twist and bounce around in the most violent fashion. It was quite frightening to watch, you know. Roared the flesh lump eater. "And he's still asleep. That terrible Troggle Humper is beginning to hit him," said the BFG. "Well, serves him right," said Sophie. She could feel no sympathy for this great brute who ate children as though they were sugar lumps. And here's a picture of the flesh lump eater giant writhing and wriggling around, having a horrible nightmare. "Shavers is after me!" screamed the flesh lump eater, thrashing about madly. "He's gonna get me!" The thrashing of limbs and the waving of arms became more violent by the second. It was an awesome thing to watch, such a massive big creature as this, having such mighty convulsions. "It's Jack!" bellowed the flesh lump eater. "It's that grueful, gruntious Jack! Jack is after me! Jack is whack cracking me! He's spike sticking me! He's splash splunking me! It's the terrible, fright swiping Jack!" Now the flesh lump eater was writhing about, all over the ground like some colossal tortured snake. "Spare me, Jack! Don't hurt me, Jack!" "Who's Jack? Who's this Jack he's on about?" Sophie whispered. "Jack! Jack is the only human being that all giants is frightened of," the BFG told her. "They's all absolutely terrified of Jack. They's all hearing about Jack, the famous giant killer." Do you know what that means? Remember the story of Jack and the beanstalk? That must be Jack, and all the giants are scared of him. "Save me!" screamed the flesh lump eater. "Have mercy on this poor little giant. The beanstalk, he's coming at me with his terrible spike-sticking beanstalk. Take it away. I's begging you, Jack. I's praying you not to touch me with your terrible spike-sticking beanstalk." "Us giants," the BFG whispered to Sophie, "us giants is not knowing very much about this dreaded human being called Jack. We is only knowing that he is a famous giant killer, and it is owning something called a beanstalk. We is also knowing that the beanstalk is a fearsome thing, and Jack is using it to kill us giants." Sophie couldn't stop smiling to herself. "What is you giggling at?" The BFG asked her, slightly nettled. "Oh, I'll tell you later," Sophie said. Now the awful nightmare that the flesh lump eater had gripped that great brute to such an extent that he was tying his whole body into knots, wriggling around. "Do not do it to me, Jack!" he screeched. "I's not eating you, Jack! I's never eaten human beings, I swear! I's never gobbled a human being in all my wholesome life!" "He's a liar," said the BFG. And just then, one of the flesh lump eater's flailing fists caught the still fast asleep meat dripper smack on his mouth. At that same time, one of his furiously thrashing legs kicked out at the snoring, gizzard-gulping giant, right in his guts. Both of these injured giants woke up and leapt to their feet. "He's swiping me in the mouth," yelled the meat dripper. "He bug-swoggling smacked me right in the guts," shouted the gizzard-gulper. And the two of them rushed at the flesh lump eater and began pounding him with their fists. The wretched flesh lump eater woke up from his nightmare with a bang, and he awoke straight from one nightmare right into another. He roared into battle, and in the bellowing, thumping rough and tumble that followed, one sleeping giant after another either got stepped on or kicked. Soon all 9 of the giants were back on their feet, awake, having the most almighty free-for-all scrap. They punched and kicked and scratched and bit and butted each other. As hard as they could, blood flowed. Noses went crunch. Teeth fell out like hailstones, and the giants roared and screamed and cursed. And for many minutes, the noise of this battle rolled around the whole of the yellow plain. And the BFG smiled, a big, wide smile of absolute pleasure. "I is loving it when they is all having a good tough and rumble." "Will they kill each other?" Sophie said. "Never. These beasts is always bishing and walloping at one another. Soon it'll be getting dusky dark and they'll be galloping off to fill their tummies." "Ugh, they are coarse and foul and filthy. I hate them," Sophie said. And as the BFG headed back into his cave, he said quietly, "We certainly was putting that nightmare to good use though, wasn't we, Sophie?" "Excellent use. Well done, you." And that is the end of the chapter for today. But we'll find out how Sophie and the BFG get on as they go back into the cave and start looking at some dreams. Alright, have a good weekend. I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.